to another video episode of my podcast. My name is Cheryl, and this is Cappuccino Crafts, my little channel on YouTube and my corner of the general interwebs where I like to talk about knitting and crochet and books and movies and TV and other life and chatty things that I want to share with you. So let's get started. Thank you so much for choosing to watch this video and spend a little bit of your time with me. I really hope that you enjoy it. Please settle in, get yourself a delicious beverage and your yarn, your hook, your needles, and let's enjoy a really lovely time. So, welcome to 2021. Yay! It's nice to turn that calendar. I mean, it is just an arbitrary time measurement, but still it feels good, especially considering what we went through last year. So, yay. I hope that you're feeling good about that too. And yeah, so today is Monday, the 4th of January, 2021, just a few days in. But it's been a nice few days. I really love like this season. I love the week between Christmas and New Year and like the first week of the new year. It's just kind of refreshing and reflective. And most of the time for me in my life, that especially that week between Christmas and New Year, I know I've always associated this couple of weeks with relaxation and reflection and refreshing, and that's how I feel it's been for me this year again. So I hope that the first few days of the new year have been a good start for you too. I am drinking some Yorkshire Gold tea in my mug that I got for Christmas from a friend. She sent me a lovely box with a few things in it, and this was one of them. And it's a bookish mug. It says, "Open book, sniff, read, repeat." I do like that new book smell. Yeah, it is nice. But yeah. Oh, and this Yorkshire Gold tea, I opened it, I don't know, sometime early or mid-December, and I've really been enjoying it. It's a very lovely tea. It's got a lot of flavor. And the color is really nice too. It's kind of a reddish orangish color, which I totally get why it's called Yorkshire Gold, because when you brew it, you get that orangish reddish gold color very much coming through. And I've got some milk and some vanilla syrup in here, and so good. So good. I recommend, like, if you are really a coffee person and you're wanting to try a tea, I do recommend any strong black tea as a good like gateway for a coffee person into tea, because black teas do have the strongest flavor. And yeah, so like I think this Yorkshire Gold would be a great like gateway tea for a coffee person. Also like Earl Grey or English breakfast, any of the like really nice and strong black teas. So yeah, I wonder what you're drinking today, and what you're crafting, or your reading. I'd love if you want to share what you're up to in the comments. I'd love to chat with you about that there in the comments. And I really do love my kind commenters, and it's really fun to hear about what you're working on and a little back and forth. And we have also started through the comments a very relaxed, very casual buddy knit. A viewer and I are knitting the Fidelia cardigan, and this is my sleeve. It's made good progress now. And anyone else who would like to join in knitting, you don't have to knit the Fidelia cardigan. Although if you like the Fidelia cardigan and feel like that's really, really what I want, that would be great. But any wintry cardigan, and you could join in this very, very relaxed and casual buddy knit along. But yeah, and still here is the cuff for the second sleeve. I need to use these needle tips. The ribbing is done on a smaller size needle to get that really like tight and elastic ribbing. But then you switch to a larger needle, and I only have one set of tips in this size. So I have to finish this sleeve before I can use the tips to work on this sleeve. But yeah, here we go. And really working on a sleeve is pretty much exactly the same idea. When you're doing it bottom up and starting at the ribbing, it's pretty much the same thing as knitting the leg of a sock. You do the ribbing and then you just go round, 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 round. It's just a different size. But right now, this has almost, at this point right here, I've got, I believe, 74 stitches, or 72 stitches on the needle, and that's just a few more than I usually have on a sock. So this is close to the stitch count for a sock leg for me when I'm doing it in all stockinette. If I've got a stretchy stitch or some ribbing in the pattern going down the leg, I can do fewer stitches because it's more stretchy. But yeah, here is the sleeve. And here are my sock legs. Yeah, just a different size needle and a different size yarn. But the same idea as those sleeves. Although I did not start on a smaller needle for the ribbing. I suppose you could do that for socks, but at the top of your, on the leg of a sock near the top, and your leg is, you know, kind of getting a little wider, you kind of don't want the ribbing so tight that it like cuts off your circulation. So, yeah, on a sock, I don't think I've ever done a smaller needle for the top of the leg. But here we go with this lovely, lovely Mad Fuzzy yarn. And it is 100% wool, East Frisian sheep wool, and which is more coarse and rustic and a little bit prickly, scratchy, itchy, but it's a little stronger, and so hopefully more durable. Because when you're using a soft, like a fine wool, for example, merino, you do want to add a little bit more strength with a different fiber. Often like synthetic fiber like nylon or polyamide. I am really excited to see how they wear and how they feel on my feet. And that's the crafting. Yeah. And reading. Let's start the reading with a little brief kind of year in review. Because I was working on my 2020, I got the book Riot. I downloaded it from their website, and it's a Google Doc. So you just click and you download the document, and then you save a copy to your own Google Drive, and then you can start editing it and have your own. And you can also make some modifications or adjustments to the spreadsheet if you want, and I did. I changed some colors because I wasn't happy with the colors. But I also added a couple of categories that were not included in the original spreadsheet. But anyway, so I was like working on my 2020 spreadsheet and setting up and beginning to fill out my 2021 spreadsheet. And so I've been reflecting and looking at my reading and for 2020, and I thought I'd share that with you. This was the first year that I've ever tracked my reading ever in my life. So it's kind of interesting to take a look at that for the first time. I read in 2020 31 books total, and that's not a huge number, but that's okay. I'm not trying to be a speed reader here. I'm just wanting to enjoy my books. And not that you can't read fast and enjoy. Everybody reads differently, and some people are just naturally really speedy readers, especially if they've been reading consistently all their lives, many books. So no shade to the fast readers out there. But I am not a fast reader, and that's not my goal, to just crank up my reading speed. It might happen over time if I continue consistently through the years, which I hope I do. I think I will. But it's not like something I'm like cranked up to like go faster, go faster. Anyway, so like I said, sorry, that was a tangent. 31 books total. That's not a gigantic number. And so I thought like a top 10 list, that would be like 30% of the total. That's not narrowing it down very much at all. So I thought for that number of books, a top 3 would be really representing the cream of the crop. When you've got 31 total. So my top 3 for 2020 were A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki, which was an amazing read. Probably not for everyone. It's kind of a different book, but I loved it so much. And it is kind of a dual timeline, dual narrative story. And it's got some timey-wiminess, a little bit of, it's very realistic a lot of the time and real world, but also elements of kind of magic or mysticism and timey-wiminess to like lift it up from the everydayness. And I thought it was beautifully written and an intricate story with all the pieces that she was weaving together. Then and these are in no particular order. I'm not ranking them 1, 2, 3, because I just didn't feel like I could. I'm like, so these are in not a particular order. But the next one in my top 3 is The 3-Body Problem by Liu Cixin. And that is a really, really philosophical and very scientific sci-fi story. Basically like a first contact situation and the beginning of an invasion. It is not your typical first contact and invasion scenario. It's very unusual and is not like not focused on like a lot of action. There are a few, like, some things happen for sure, and there are some scenes that like feel like they might be like in a sci-fi action movie, but not many. And it's not focused on action and battles and ships in space, kind of a thing. It is very philosophical. It is very character driven. It is really asking a lot of existential questions and talking about philosophy and history and science and religion and philosophy and wow, yeah, it's really good. And then my final book in the top 3 is Echo by Pam Munoz Ryan. And this is a middle grade historical fiction with also a little bit of fairy tale and magic added. So it's not strictly realistic at all, but most of the time realistic with little elements of the fairy tale and the magic. And it's got it's kind of like 3 stories, but they're connected together with kind of this fairy tale framing device. And also, well, I don't want to ruin anything, but it's got a theme of music too, very strong. And so with the music and the fairy tale, it links the 3 children's stories, and they are in different times. Not like, they're not all in the same year. They're all around World War II, but they're in very different places. And have different experiences of World War II. So it deals with a lot of like kind of big historical things and some tough things. But it's also a very hopeful book, but it doesn't also shy away from the ugliness and the difficult things. But it also ultimately is a very hopeful and heartwarming book. It made me cry and tear up, like, just, yeah, it was really lovely. So that was the top 3 in 2020. I don't really want to say the bottom 3 because, to be honest, when I was looking at my list of what I read, I did not read any bad books in 2020. I really didn't. I didn't like everything the same, but I did not have any strong dislike at all for any of the books that I've read, and I did not regret reading any of them. I did DNF one book. The lowest rating, I use like a 5-star rating system. And the lowest rating that I gave any book this year was a 3-star, which is, you know, a fine rating. That's not a bad rating out of 5. It's just very fine. I'm really happy with what I read this year. I feel like it was a very good reading year for me, and that's been really great. So I have in 2021 started 2 books. So my first 2 books of the new year. On New Year's Eve, my hold became available. I had the Addie LaRue audiobook on hold from my library, and it became available. It was my turn on New Year's Eve. So I started it on New Year's Eve. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. And this is my first V.E. Schwab book that I've ever read. So I've been really excited to read her for the first time. I know a lot of people really enjoy her books. And so far, I am really enjoying this one. It is about a young woman. It's not a young adult book. This is definitely an adult book. But the character, Addie, is in her early 20s though. And she, in like 1714 France, in a village. So at that time and in that place, women didn't really have options and life was very narrow, and she just wanted to break out. She wanted to be able to expand her horizons, make her own choices. Her family is forcing her to marry, and she really can't stand being forced to marry and be stuck in this village her whole life, when all that she wants is to see more of the world, explore, and make her own decisions, and be able to, you know, set her goals for her own life and not be controlled. So she was warned, do not pray to the gods who answer at night. She was told that, but on her wedding day, she runs away, and it's turning dusk to dark, and she's praying, desperately praying, and it turns dark, and that's when she gets her answer. So it's not a good answer. She gets her wish granted to be free and to live her life and have a long life, but there are some pretty horrible conditions in the bargain, and it's a pretty hard fate for her. She will not be remembered by anyone as soon as she is out of their vision, as soon as, like, they're in another room, separated by a doorway, a closed door. Like, she will not be remembered by anyone when they are not, when they are not in her presence anymore. And she cannot even make a mark on anyone or anything in the world. She can't write because her marks just will not stay on the page. She can't make anything or build anything or do anything that lasts beyond a moment. And yeah, so she lives this way hundreds of years. So part of the story is in the beginning of her time learning how to exist in this way. And she has to steal because she can't have a job or a place to call home. She can't buy or rent a apartment or a house or any place, any shelter. So part of it is in the 1700s and the beginning of this way of living. And then in 2014, something changes. She meets someone for the second time, and this man, Henry, can remember her. And for these 300 some years, nobody has ever remembered her. But he can. And what's this? And so things change a little bit in the modern day, and she finds out what that means and what she can do now and how that changes her. The second book that I have started is The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodore Goss. And this is just kind of a fun mystery romp with like literary, okay, here's the premise. In Victorian England, these are the daughters of some very famous Victorian Gothic literary men or monsters. For example, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. We've got a daughter of Jekyll and a daughter of Hyde. And also Sherlock Holmes and Watson are helping these girls do some of the detective work to find out some of the questions and some of the mystery of Dr. Jekyll's death. I think that's what they're going to be investigating. From what I've heard, Sherlock and Holmes definitely don't take over as main parts of the story. This is still very much the girls' stories. This is the first novel in a series. Doctor Who had a New Year's Day special episode, which was a lot of fun. And I don't remember, it's been a long time since there's been a new Doctor Who episode. A long time. So it was really exciting to have a brand new Doctor Who episode, and it was on New Year's Day, and it was just really fun. Really fun. There were Daleks. So I think that's all. I hope that you and all of your family are well and safe, and I hope that 2021 is a better year for all of us, everyone. So yeah, take care and see you next time. Bye-bye.